Across to the Northern Territory now, and the Territory government has sacked the bosses of two power generations utilities following a report into widespread blackouts in Alice Springs. Matt Cunningham joins me live now from Darwin. Matt, tell us about these blackouts and what caused them.
Well, Chris, this happened on the 13th of October this year, and the power actually went out to large parts of Alice Springs for up to 10 hours. Now, the Northern Territory government will hold a news conference in the next 20 minutes or so, where it will be announced that the two bosses of two power generation companies here in the Northern Territory, Power and Water and Territory Generation, will be sacked over this incident. But they have released a report into exactly what went wrong on the 13th of October 2019. And the key finding of this independent investigation has basically said that this system blackout was caused by the sudden, unforeseen by those managing the system, reduction of solar generation from the Uterna solar farm and from rooftop solar installations, which resulted in a discernible increase in load on dispatch synchronous generation. So basically what happened, Chris, and this report goes on to explain further, was that at about 1:43 p.m. On the afternoon that this event happened, there was a cloud that came over and covered the solar farm there. It says that the output of the Uterna solar station was relatively constant at around 3.3 megawatts until 1:43 p.m. At 1:43 p.m, a cloud passed over the station and station output became highly variable, with reductions in output to as low as 0.5 megawatts. Now, this is what has caused all of the issues there. I've spoken to a manager from the Power and Water Corporation who's basically said that the system there is really constantly on a knife's edge. They have to basically try and guess how much consumption there'll be the next day. He explained it as being a bit like a bucket of water. You have the power sort of trickling in and then trickling out holes that are in that bucket, and if you either overflow it or it runs dry, you have absolute chaos, because the computer-controlled generators then basically lose the plot. That's what happened in this situation. One then tripped out the other, which tripped out the other, and then the whole town was basically blacked out. So obviously this is a massive issue. Now, those ministers, Dale Wakefield and Nicole Manison, will announce this morning the sacking of those two executives, although some are asking whether the government needs to take a bit more responsibility for what's actually happened in this case.
Matt, this is a fascinating issue, right? Because we understand with the intermittent renewables, you've got to find ways to smooth out your supply of power and back it up when it's not there. But one thing for me, I never thought you'd just get a cloud going over that could cause so much strife in the middle of the day. And the other point is, jeepers, if you can't sort out solar energy and make it useful in Alice Springs, it isn't going to work anywhere. So, I mean, obviously they've got to work out ways to smooth out this supply.
Well, it does raise a lot of those issues, and part of this report, Chris, actually talks about whether, there's new technology that can better predict when clouds are going to come over so that you can compensate for that. But it's also raised a lot of questions about the Northern Territory government's push, the renewable energies push. It has a target for 50% renewable energy by 2030. Now, just last week I was speaking to Dave Tollner, the former Deputy Chief Minister, who's putting his hand up again for pre-selection. He said that that target is absolute madness when you consider that the Northern Territory's already signed up to a gas contract with ENI that runs until 2034. Now, the Northern Territory, most of the Northern Territory's power is already run, it's supplied by gas, not by coal. And as we know, gas is a lot cleaner than coal is. So questions being asked too about that renewable energy target. The issue as well, Chris, is the grid and the grid's inability to deal with solar energy, which we see in this case. And there have been sort of predictions that there'll be further problems if we go down this path, because the grid here in the Northern Territory is already ageing. It would need an incredible amount of work to be done to upgrade it to be able to handle that solar energy. The Environment Minister, we were here talking on your show just a couple of weeks ago when she was talking about a zero emissions policy by 2050. She was asked several times at a news conference about what work was being done and what the likely cost would be to upgrade that electricity grid, and she wouldn't answer the question and seemed to have absolutely no idea. So it's all a bit of a mess here in the Northern Territory at the moment, but in the next 15 minutes or so we will have that news confirmed that those two bosses of those power generation companies have been given the flick, but I'm sure there'll be more questions that will be asked today of the Northern Territory Government.
Just quickly, Matt, Dave Tollner, well known to Sky News viewers, a regular on Paul Murray Live. Obviously he's had a role in Territory politics in the past and in federal politics. I hadn't caught up with him putting his hand up again. He's going back into Territory politics or federal politics?
Yeah, Dave Tollner announced last week, Chris, that he's going to stand for CLP pre-selection ahead of next year's Northern Territory election. Right. Now, of course, he's a former member for the seat of Solomon and a former Deputy Chief Minister here, but he will contest pre-selection for the seat of Fong Lim ahead of next year's Northern Territory election.
Good stuff. Thanks, Matt.